Hi, everybody. My name's Host Eric, who's talking to famous people. The internet's number one leading Eric Strauss of all.
Are you talking about my FeNi?
No. Yes, I did, Kyra. Thank you. So I received an interesting email today, and I don't doubt. No, but this. The email I received was about LiJo, and I don't doubt that in part the person's goal in sending me this email was to prompt some sort of a video reply. The gist of the email was this: that I'm being played in some fashion because the gist of it being, I guess, that LiJo actually did make that video about me, and that she positioned it so she didn't, so that she could then later position me as a crazy drug addict no one should pay attention to. Well, I mean, there's a number of problems with this email that I received. Countless problems with it. I don't want to, I guess, go into too much detail about exactly all of the stuff that it said, because I guess I don't want to afford its author that much of a voice. But I'll simply say this. Look, knowledge interface types. Just because you think that you've successfully goaded somebody into something, that you've prompted a response that you want, doesn't mean you're in control of the situation, even if you're right. So what I mean by that is, let's say the person who wrote this email is entirely right, and that this whole thing is constructed to make me look bad. Well, it failed miserably. I completely stand by the video that I made. I didn't do anything that that anybody would possibly conclude as worthy of dismissal. So, and I also don't think that LiJo's been somebody who's attempted to portray me as a crazy off the handle drug addict or something. The person in the email seems intent on defining that as my dismissible quality, which I guess is the only dismissible quality you can find. I don't know. But the thing is, the other gist of the email is that LiJo is an ESFP. I was right when I typed her. All of this stuff is a big constructed plan to get me to retype her something else. Well, I mean, have I retyped her or something? I don't remember doing that. You know, I've never typed her at all. I typed police her one time back in the day. But regardless, the point is this. Knowledge interface, ultimately, in this kind of a medium, is the wrong way to approach a question. Like, it doesn't matter what your opponent is trying to do, really. You can spend all of your time trying to figure out what your opponent's trying to do, and then react, adjust your game to that if you want to. But that's not a good approach, ultimately, for this kind of a medium. Ultimately, it boils down to who's making the more cogent arguments. Anybody who watches both LiJo's video on respect and my video on disrespecting LiJo's video on respect, anybody with half a brain will immediately concede that my analysis is much more substantial, much defter, much more meaningful, that my critique of TE is absolutely warranted and well justified, and that in terms of the actual quality of the language content that mine's vastly superior. So the thing is, that if it were to be in fact the case, and I don't believe it is, but if it were in fact to be the case that I was somehow manipulated into making that video, it totally backfired on whoever attempted to manipulate me into making it, right? Because the thing is, I got this situation with kind of a narcissistic ENFJ once who kept trying to sort of walk me along a path of that he wanted me to walk along, assuming that once he got my momentum on a certain path, that he'd be able to get me to do things that were not okay or something like that. But absolutely not. It's like I don't approximate. I don't use heuristics like that. So I just wanted to respond to this video by saying to whoever wrote that email, it doesn't matter. You know, they linked me to a bunch of Reddit threads that are all full of analysis about whether or not LiJo is actually an INTJ. The person in the email is insisting that LiJo has constructed this INTJ character to match people's expectations of the INTJ. Of course, I would point out that it's very unlikely for an ENTP to be able to do that. You know, so ENTPs aren't good at fooling intuitives. They're very, very bad at fooling intuitives. Intuitives can fool intuitives sometimes, but ENTPs, no. The thing is, I've never actually typed her. During my conversation with her that I had not that long ago, I will tell you that nothing about her made me go, this is an ESFP. The obvious typing to make of her, other than INTJ, is ENTJ. Because she's so focused on progress, improvement, things like that, you know? It's a much more reasonable conclusion to draw than ESFP based on the data we have in front of us, you know? If you don't cough, you don't get off, New Jack? Is that what you're trying to say? Well, I will tell you this much. I prefer not to cough. Rachel enjoys coughing. She's a big fan of coughing. Also, if you are one of Rachel's friends and have been trying to contact her the last couple of days, her phone is out of commission because she's switching carriers from AT&T to Verizon and Mugity Magity Mew.
It's like basically neither one wants to talk to each other.
Well, we, you know, Sunday's probably not a good day to deal with it, I guess. We'll deal with it tomorrow. I don't know.
No, well, yeah, we'll do it tomorrow, or I could try the guy again with the phone number. Let's try the phone number first, and then we'll see who has to go. The AT&T.
Yeah.
Thank you with your patience for all this.
Of course.
But yeah, anyone who is listening that's been trying to contact me, my phone is not usable at the moment.
So this is a basic problem with a knowledge interface approach when it's too overbearing, especially with too FeNi. There's an assumption that the reality never. Oh, you want the same letter with a different color? I'll get on that. I will get on that today. I'll get that done. If you have if you want to send me some PNGs or something that are the right size, then you know how to do that. Go for it. But I can do it pretty easy. I just gotta change the color in it, and And what color do you want it to be? Do you have a preference? So anyway, the point is, there's this assumption that everybody is always going to be using heuristics to evaluate people. That if somebody can portray me with some sort of reference points as being able to be dismissed easily because of meow, that is how people are going to actually evaluate me. But the thing is, that may be true for some parties. The thing is, I've never been particularly interested in pandering to the lowest common denominator anyway. I mean, if somebody can't actually evaluate what I'm saying or hear my words and listen to what they mean and evaluate that on its merits, then, it's like, how much effort do I want to put? What's the point in getting them to pay attention anyway? Because they're not going to learn a goddamn thing. Now, I would point out that this is much more likely to be indicative of interface dominant with knowledge tool than it is of knowledge dominant interface tool. So it's like, with INFJs, there'll be instances when I'll tend to think that's your NI run amok. But at least it doesn't take that form of concern about how others will know incorrectly about you. Well, there's infinite possible ways in which people can incorrectly portray you. So people could dismiss me in lots of different ways. They can lie. They can present partial truths. They can highlight things that are completely true while ignoring everything else. It's so much a matter of framing, right? It's like, oh, he's just some guy who smokes pot all day. Well, I am a guy who smokes pot all day. But what's with the just? Whether or not you put that just in there makes a big difference. And if you say, he's a guy who smokes pot all day and who says things that are consistently more correct than everybody else, then it changes the meaning of that sentence, the first part, dramatically. It seems to be an indictment of anti-marijuana considerations, which it should be. The reason I smoke pot on camera is not because I want to celebrate marijuana or something, or because I want to undermine my own capacity to be respected by people. It's because it needs to be normalized, because people who think that there's a problem with it are wrong. They're not only fundamentally wrong, they're basically racist. They're racist against pot smokers for no good reason. So, the thing is, thanks, Gamma Quadra. That seems very FI. No, I think that normalizing that which is morally acceptable, morally permissible, and not harmful as a good, as a universal good. I think that's absolutely the case. It's part of why I'm so opposed to privacy. Privacy is two things. It's how people who are actually doing bad things get away with it, and it's how people who aren't doing bad ways who aren't doing bad things continue to contribute to the marginalization of behaviors that fundamentally aren't bad but are treated as bad anyway. So that's the bottom line. Is I operate at the largest frame of reference, and I insist on behaving accordingly. Behaving as though the world is just, and if not, I will make it so. It's the best way to be. What do you mean by MJ has no moral? What's MJ? Michael Jackson? Oh, marijuana. what do I do to organize my thoughts? Well, I mean, the thing is, when I have a notion that I want to express and I organize my thoughts about it, I usually write it out onto a Google document or in a table or something like that. The problem is I tend to have fairly, well, at this point in like my thinking about cognitive functions, I'm no longer really trying to figure stuff out. I'm just I'm just trying to get myself to, I guess, be more TE about the whole thing. Focus more on stuff that's more universally useful. All right. So the thing is, this whole notion of that video of LiJo's being about me began because shortly before she published it, there was an exchange between me and some commenters about whether or not I was disrespecting the world by smoking pot. And then shortly thereafter, I made a video about those commenters, and then she made her video about respect. So it was perfectly reasonable conclusion for me to draw, and I continue to maintain it was a correct NI conclusion to draw, that in fact, it was in response to me, given what had come before it. So I know I don't retract my consideration that that was the correct conclusion. How do you get typed by me? You pay me $100 for an hour-long face-to-face, ask you a bunch of questions, check your skills in various areas, and so forth, and then tell you what type you are by the end of the session. There's details in the description of all my videos. You just email me, call me, whatever time or day or time slot you want, and I'll say, okay, yeah, that's good, we're confirmed, and we'll meet there in the video comments room. Okay, so thing is, you seem to just go on a whim. Well, I mean, I am most comfortable just freestyling ideationally because I'm an ENTP, and that's what I like to do. I bet you paid more than that to get typed by OP Gamma Quadra, and I bet you paid more than that for less for real typing. You probably sent in a little tape of you yourself, and they're like, "Oh, you're a meow 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 meow." Doctors used to smoke cigarettes during surgery. Oh, you got it for free, huh? Well, congratulations. Well, you know what a free typing's worth. So the thing is, I can't control other people's stupidity, and that's the bottom line. Is that if you're too much of an interface knower with FE and NI, especially with the interface function first, then at the end of the day, you think that everything ought to be dealt with via an interface approach, which means you assume everybody else is going to be using heuristics rather than actually deliberating things out themselves. So I noticed this from Jeffrey's mom. Jeffrey's mom's a TE Dom, and she wants to approach everything through an interface approach. And every time I tell her the way to approach this is to, instead use language not to understand better your opponent and accommodate them better, but rather to attack them, Right. Well, there are a fair number of people in New Jack who just despise me in general for whatever reason and try to attack as whichever way they can. From what I saw about these links to these Reddit threads, I guess LiJo is very much heavily critiqued for not being an INTJ, and that my type police is sometimes referenced in that. And so then there's naturally going to be some back and forth about my legitimacy, I guess. Well, the bottom line is why is there not a Reddit back and forth about me and whether I'm actually an ENTP? Well, because it's, you know, it's just, it's kind of a hard argument to make, right? And maybe it's just because I'm not as big, so I don't attract as much attention. But no, I'm saying TI wants to attack and corner with language. TE wants to figure out how to get the problem solved and not make any trouble, you know? That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying TE wants to attack. TE doesn't want to attack. TI wants to attack. So it's like when I'm talking to Jeffrey's mom about this teacher, I'm saying you go in there and you tell her meowity, 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 meow, and corner her ass so she's running from you rather than the other way around. You think it's because you rip a bong with a kerosene torch that everyone believes you're an ENTP? I mean, well, that'd be a very dumb reason to believe that I'm an ENTP.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I said, I can't control other people's lack of thinking. I'm not going to try. I'm not going to control. I'm never going to be able to control people's capacity to make stupid assertions that they can't defend, just to goad me. I'm never going to be able to prevent them from believing whatever they want to believe. I don't give a fuck. The point is that I'm right, you know? That's what matters. And they can't win any of the arguments, and that's what makes them so pissed off. So, you know, haters gonna hate. What are you gonna do? That's just life in the big city. The thing is, I don't even thank you, 69 Kid. I appreciate it. What he says there, I believe to be true. That I am just chilling myself. I'm not trying to posture or anything. I don't know why people get so mad at me, but they sure do sometimes. They sure do. I mean, sometimes they're not even mad at me. They find it, you know, they find some sort of compulsive need to cut me down to size. You know, I think that's the most common motivation probably, but I don't really know. There are such people in the world who just try to tear down things around them that they feel, I guess, threatened by or something. Maybe it's fun to mess with you because you respond. Well, like I said, that's very much an interface frame of reference. I only respond to the things I want to respond to, right? So, you might say that, well, I'm just playing into their hands. Well, I'd say, well, they're playing into my hands, right? Because I'm here looking for things to respond to. I'm only responding to those things that I want to respond to. And usually, if somebody throws me a softball, I hit a home run, you know? It's not like people are throwing me incredibly subtle and outwitting me with their comments and stuff. People who want to provoke me are usually saying stupid shit. I can choose to respond to it or not. You talking about Michelle Shock, New Jack? That's weird. I wouldn't expect that to be the case, that she'd be violating a bunch of copyrights. Why? I mean, the thing is, I just I'm not one to use TI as a weapon on my partners. So Rachel has plenty of. Hi, Dad.
Hi, cat. Can't get out, huh? You go, boy. It's okay.
It's okay,
Don't know
PP.
what to do. Hard to make a decision. I'll go well.
Yeah, everything went great. I got some pictures I'll show you with the with some stuff we put in it, and
Or did they do it, or did you do it?
no, we did it.
Oh,
I just put a couple things in there to sort of demonstrate to them that these are here now, I guess.
okay.
So I'll send you those pictures. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm live streaming right now, so in a little bit. Just 500 news articles are reprinted on our site. Why? The thing is, it's so funny to like. Sometimes you have to look at the big picture, and sometimes you have to look at the small picture, right? So it's like, if you want to attack me on copyright grounds, you really got your hands full making an argument, because I might make an occasional little mistake, like a snippet of a song in the background of one of my things or something, but nobody can meaningfully say I am purposely abusing copyright in order to make a successful channel. I have almost nothing on my channel that's not of my own generation, including all of these live streams. So, which are probably my most common video at this point. The videos that I upload, it's all generated from myself. I work for my own documents. I make my own music. There's nothing about me that anybody could say is remotely copyright abusey. So, it's weird that somebody like, but if you want to attack, then you're going to avoid the forest, and you're going to just narrow in on a specific tree and attack accordingly. What's up with the title? Well, what's up with the title, DO Memes, is that I got an email today that was kind of it was a substantial email and well written, that suggested that, in fact, LiJo did mean that respect video to be about me. She was trying to provoke me to respond so that she could portray me as some sort of fly off the handle drug addict or whatever. My point of that is, I don't think I've heard her portray me as such. Number one, she may have, but I'd have to have I'd have to be linked to something like that to believe that. Number two, it doesn't matter, because the video I made, I stand by. I didn't say anything I regret saying in the video. It exists independently. In that case, you've got to look at the singular tree that's outweighing the forest in that instance. It doesn't matter what anybody intended. The outcome is, it's a damn good video that rather correctly. No, it wasn't from her. No, it was not from LiJo. It was about her. It was somebody who's like against her. Okay. So the email was from somebody who doesn't like LiJo a lot, and who's trying to convince me that LiJo is scheming against me. That's what this email was. My point is, it doesn't matter, right? I don't think she is, but it doesn't matter, because if she were scheming against me, all that she would have successfully done is gotten me to make a video that's a very strong video that correctly and relatively respectfully tears apart her video. Yeah, I mean, I think they're wrong too. I agree with you that the video was in the pipe for weeks, and I agree with you that it was the weirdness is this, and this would be suggestive of FE Polar. Okay, this would be suggestive of FE Polar, that in fact, given the conversation that was had between me and her commenters prior to her releasing her respect video, and given the respect video I released just prior, like a day prior to her releasing her video, for her not to think, oh my God, he's definitely going to think this is about him, does suggest some total absence of FE, right? It's such an obvious conclusion to draw given what came before, right? LiJo is that normie who thinks they're a mastermind because a bad source typed her as INTJ. Don't type people as INTJ. Well, Deal Memes, I have not made any claims about her type one or the other. What I would say, Deal Memes, is this. As somebody who's typed a lot of people, I don't type a lot of INTJs. I did the other day. So the correct thing to say is this. Only type INTJs as INTJs. Or perhaps hashtag only listen to Eric's typings. That would be a good hashtag. Okay, this is not supposed to be at a LiJo bashing party, New Jack, or anybody else. Okay, I'm not here to bash LiJo. I'm actually responding to somebody who emailed me who was trying to bash LiJo, right? My goal here is not to bash LiJo. My point, though, is this. The person who emailed me is fundamentally led astray by their interface, probably interface dominant, but could be someplace else in the stack. Their interface frame of reference, which says that that all that really matters is whether or not you're dancing to their tune. The point is, I'm dancing. If it happens to be to their tune, that's fine. If that coordinates with us. And as soon as they start playing the wrong tune, my dancing becomes kicking. And then I kick them instead of dancing. You know. Don't trust TSB or CSJ. Okay, that'd be fine, Dio Memes. You are the god of memes, after all. Unless you're the Ronnie James Dio of memes, in which case, well, it's still not bad, I guess. Look, the point is this. We did not come here. We came here to bury LiJo, not to praise her. Yeah. No, I mean, not that. Yeah, I agree. Don't appearance shame people. It's not cool. I am thirsty as hell. I gotta get a beverage. You want a beverage, Rachel?
Sure.
I'll tell you something, though, that I think is pretty important. If you have a relationship where your SI is a combined 12, it is literally impossible for you to predict how much milk you're going to use. So we got a gallon of milk this time. In the past, we've gone through it really quickly to eat a bunch of cereal. This time I just sat in the fridge. It's impossible to know whether you're going to, how much milk you're going to use. It makes it.
We only had one bowl, too.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, I've had people send me links of, like, I shared the link last time. There's a link of LiJo's extra video in which it's okay. It's already forgotten about New Jack.
Yeah.
Just let it slide into oblivion. There's not a lot of SI retention of grief or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody's holding any grudges. Nobody's keeping score against you. Yeah, we have O'Doul's right now. We've got, which is not nearly as good, I must say, as the Heineken that I just finished, but we're out of these. We're out of these. Here. Hey, Alyssas Key, how you doing? So, Anyway, I hope I've made my couple of points here. It's probably isn't going to be a super long live stream. My couple of key points are this. Number one, let me just dismiss right now all idea that I need to worry so much about what other people are trying to get me to do. I trust my discretion in my decision making. There's a lot of stuff I ignore. Just because people see me responding to certain things does not mean that I am constantly being reactive in some regard. I typically, even though I'm any Dom, I typically have gotten pretty good at deciding what I want to engage my extroverted intuition with and what I don't. So it really doesn't matter if I'm dancing what would appear to be dancing to somebody else's tune. If it's not for mutual benefit, then I'll end up kicking them with my dancing is the point. It doesn't matter what they intend. I'm not worried about losing in that kind of context. So that's number one thing to remember. I mean, DO memes, again, we don't have enough actual data to firmly type her.
Yeah.
Because all we have are the things that she puts out as representations of herself. In other words, those time objects that represent herself as subject or affect that you would like to present to people, right? So it makes it limited in what we can judge. We need to actually engage with her cognitive processes, ask her questions, test her skills, and find out based on a real typing what type she is. Otherwise, we won't know. Now, I heard a couple instances of SI that might suggest she wasn't SI polar, but very few. So I would agree with you, DO memes, with the following: if you were to base your conclusion just on the subject affect thing from her channel as it is now, you'd probably conclude ENTJ. Okay, you'd probably conclude ENTJ. But I don't think that that's. I think that that's being fooled by affect. Basically, it's like I don't know. The point is this: I try not to type people until I've actually typed them, and the reason is because people can put on an act. There are actors and actresses who can act like this or act like that, but they typically can't fake the skills. Who's accusing Winston's mom of having a big ego?
Well, I was just saying that she's an INTJ and she doesn't have a big.
Oh, I see. Michael B.N. says it's that big ass ego that gets in the way of INTJs. Also, again, no offense to INTJ. They're talking about the unhealthy ones. He said no.
Oh, sorry, I didn't complete your sentence.
You didn't read his whole disclaimer.
Bye.
Michael B.N., we want to credit your disclaimer in full now. Now, I want to agree with you also, Michael B.N., that by and large, there's a big ego underlying the fact that every INTJ I ever type, when I get to the end of it and I say to the sentence, do you identify with this sentence? And I go, though I show nothing, my rage at everyone doing everything wrong runs deep. And then you see them burst in this big smile for like the first time they've ever smiled in their life or something. They recognize themselves. So yeah, there is a certain amount of ego implicit in the notion that everyone's doing everything wrong and I'm angry about it. It implies that I know how to do things right and everybody else doesn't. But they don't really convey it. But that's just implicit to being an INTJ because that's what it means to have NITE, FI third, FE seventh. I've typed very few I've typed very few of either, to be perfectly honest, DO memes, or I guess I probably type more INTJs because ISTJs typically aren't interested in cognitive functions, nor are ISFJs, ESFJs, ESTJs. Your SI DOMs, SI tool function users typically are not interested in cognitive functions. Cognitive functions is an NI frame of reference that helps people go, I can use this external understanding of people, apply it to the particular, and have better understanding of the particular. People who have the particular as their particular knowledge as their dominant or tool function, they basically don't use NI like that. So almost none of them are interested in typology. If I do type them, it's because a family member gets me to type them usually, you know? Sometimes, like, I'll type an INFJ. I type a lot of INFJs. I type a lot of ISFPs, ISTPs, NI1, NI3. Those types like to get me typing them because they have a high value and singular answers that are complete. They like them to validate on their deliberative functions. So whether it's FI-DOM or TI-DOM, they tend to be more satisfied with my typings than others. In contrast, the only people who really come back to me later and go, I'm not sure about my typing in general, are INFPs and INTPs, mostly INTPs, who come back and go, but maybe I'm INFP, because that, but sometimes it happens with INFPs too, because that any tool function goes wild and they can't leave well enough alone. Which do I encounter more in life? Well, see, here's the thing. What about INTJs in comparison to ISTPs and INTPs? I type more ISTPs probably than INTJs or INTPs. Second, and among those three, I probably type as INTPs. Probably least frequent among those three is INTJs. INTJs typically type themselves correctly, and don't really question it after that much, I guess. I do type some ENFPs. I used to type more ENFPs who think they were ENTPs. I mean, I've never doubted my type for a second. From the first moment I learned about typology and I read all the type descriptions, I didn't know anything about cognitive functions back there. I just read about the type description. I said, I'm definitely this type. I tested as that on the test that they had back then. I've never really tested anything but on any test I've ever taken. I don't know. For me, everything fits perfectly. So I value NI. I think ENFPs also ultimately settle on being ENFPs. They may come in thinking they're ENTPs first. But once I test their TI and go, well, the reason you're not an ENTP is because you can't answer any of these questions, and ENTPs can. And they go away, maybe emotionally sit with it for a while, and then go, okay, fine. Whereas INFPs, INTPs, they can't decide which one they are between those two. They go, well, maybe I'm an INTP. Well, maybe I'm an INFP. Well, maybe I'm an INTP. Well, maybe I'm an INFP. So, hi, Sean. Your ex-husband married a carbon copy of her. Oh, of LiJo? Well, my ex-wife's ex-husband married an INFJ, and now he's perfectly happy. What about ISTPs and I? How does that work? Oh, Carissa. I have a student I was just working with earlier, Chloe, and she's an ISTP, and I keep arguing with her mom. Her mom wants me to teach her writing, and I keep explaining to her that you can't really teach writing. You really can't. It's like you can't teach writing any more than you can teach how to compose a song. You're making something. She wants me to teach the NE polar out of her daughter. I keep explaining, I can't do it. You fundamentally can't teach somebody who is NE polar how to generate random stuff. Now, I have a great time teaching her logic. When I go through the conditional logic curriculum I generated, she moves through it fast, and it's one of those things where it's clearly not about age, right? If you get if you get a fifth grader who's got TI dominant like Chloe and start around logic, she blows right through it, gets the basic concept of the whole thing, and immediately, within a couple of lessons, we'll master it. She's a sixth grader now. I've got her we're just starting into proofs. In other words, we've gone all the way through truth tables, all the representations. I've introduced her to the rules of inference, rules of replacement, and she picks it up like that. But she can't come up with random shit. So how's she supposed to write a paper? So the NI thing is like, it locks in with TI very nicely for them. They want NI and TI to coordinate with one another. And when they find things where it does, it's usually very satisfying, which is partially why I get a fair number of ISTPs that I type. So as far as what type I am, what type do I think I am now? I'm definitely still an ENTP, same thing I've always been. The thing is, for people who want to question whether I'm an ENTP, the challenge that they have is this: find me somebody who's more ENTP-like than me, then. Because keep in mind what my job is. I'm literally a professional debate coach. I've taught conditional logic. And I'm teaching it now again to a single student. I've taught it to classrooms in high school. I have a YouTube channel where I live stream a great deal and just talk and interface with the individuals here in ways that are usually about which is the more logically correct idea. I have hundreds of songs generated that I've put up on YouTube as well. So it would be very difficult for anybody to argue that I'm not an ENTP, because where are you going to argue? It's like, it's tough. So making an intuitive jump within a logic system. I mean, the thing about NI is it's a collapsing down kind of function where it takes a bunch of clues, realities about a circumstance of the world, and derives singular explanations for them, singular answers. It's not very useful in generating, is the point. And so if you want to teach an ISTP to write poetry or something, the challenge is they need to have something they actually want to write about first, and then they'll write about it in one way. And they try to keep things clean and simple, and there's nothing wrong with how they write, but her mom wants me to turn her into something else. And being a TE dom, her mom can't get it through her head that some things you cannot interface. You just have to accept how they are. Being TE dom NI polar, especially, she's like that. It's really challenging to get her to accept NI truths at all. And she keeps trying to make silly arguments with me, like, well, I've taught so many students before how to play their instruments. I'm like, yeah, but you're not teaching them how to make up songs. And she's like, well, why is that so different? Well, it is so different. That's why. What type am I? If I have very TI when testing cognitive functions individually, but tested INFP, ENFP, INTP equally before. So if you test very high on TI on my tests, then you can eliminate ENFP. INFPs sometimes do test very high on TI tests. And in fact, INFPs, INTPs can be among the tougher of the two types to distinguish between, from my experience. It can take me all the way to the end of a typing session sometimes before I'm able to make that distinction clearly. Sounded like it. Sounded like a winner. Does FE manage face reactions? I feel like lower stack FE users are not very expressive like their face. Well, the thing is this. I'm actually quite expressive with my face, and I'm also third slot FE. But I would suggest that it really depends on what you're trying to do. So it's like I'm an EHP who does a fair amount of not just sort of informational stuff, but attempts to do entertaining stuff as well. So I know the stream is really popular tonight. That's why I'm still going, even though I've already really said what I wanted to say. I'll probably quit it in an hour. So, I mean, it hasn't helped me at all. I took a music theory class in college and I never use it at all. I don't think about music theory one bit when I make music, and I make tons and tons of music. So, the one kind of music theory, I guess you call music theory, that I do know is I just know how to like read comps. So it'll say C or C minor, or D minor, or whatever. I know what that chord is to play, but that's not the same thing as real music theory at all. Real music theory, highlight show. You show up at some point. So the thing is, this video is in response to this person who emailed me, who's definitely doesn't like you and wants me to perceive things a certain way. And so I'm trying to explain that it doesn't matter. It's like, anyway, my point is, no, dude, and it doesn't matter. This person is desperate. This person who emailed me is desperate to have you typed as an ESFP, and is desperate to additionally paint you as somebody who's maneuvering me in ways to get who's I don't know, masterminding my behavior or something. And so, you know, I'm like, the fuck, and had to make a video about it.
Yeah, because this is actually Secret Week.
So, as I said multiple times here, I've never typed you. I don't know what type you are. And everybody needs to chill the fuck out regarding everything. I don't know. Everybody needs to chill the fuck out regarding everything.
Sad.
Well, Michael B.N., the problem is this. The problem isn't between INTP and something that's not SE polar. The challenge is usually between INTP and INFP, and they're both SE polar. So, and I don't think that's a good way to tell SE polar, is that you don't know how to dress and draw. Yeah, okay, the drawing part I agree with. I think drawing has something to do with SE. Delusional Folly Gang, ENFJ.
I never heard that before.
Are you talking about the person who emailed me? Carissa G? I don't know who you're talking about. Or the person who emailed me? Or CSJ? Yeah, I agree. ENFJ seems a good typing of that person. I would totally agree with you. An ENFJ who writes well, and email is very much like, you know, FeNi. Eric, if INTJs are FE polar, then how do you explain INTJs like Scar and Lelouch? It's like saying, if faster than light travel is impossible, then how do you explain Star Wars? I don't. Are FE Doms highly manipulative? I don't know if they're highly manipulative or not. Not necessarily. I think that they can be nice. They want their way. Like ESFJs, you know, they've got a script for how they want their way, their life to be. They want everybody in their life to Sheila W., are you seriously asking me to look at your drawings and paintings so that I can be convinced that you're some type other than what I think you are? You've got to be effing kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. Are you still concerned about what I typed to you like 2 years ago? You've been howling protestations about it for 2 years. Why do you care so much what I think? That you're so absolutely dedicated to being the type you want to be. What the fuck difference does it matter what I think? One of my personal criticisms of the OP system, 512 subtypes. What more is there to say? It's insane. If you have jumpers who are ENTPs who look exactly like ISFJs, then how the fuck are you supposed to tell them apart? Why do you have those? I mean, they're totally arbitrary additions, not predicated on any sort of real observations that can meaningfully be linked to cognitive functions at all. It's complete just, I mean, I'd call it weak any run amok. Again, I don't have a system. I explain cognitive functions correctly, okay? It's not because of me. It's because everybody has worked together to eliminate all the wrongness from cognitive functions. And when we do that, we recognize it as there are multiple ways in which we try to link things to cognitive functions. Some of them are affects, some of them are value correlates, some of them are skills correlates. And those skills correlates are the strongest kinds of tests. We have a couple specific ways of testing for poor that have proved over hundreds of typings, most of them published. Okay. So in other words, there's a massive pile of actual data that everybody can objectively reference on the same kinds of questions and see the scope of answers within a TI question range and recognize that these things correlate with weak here, strong here, etc. And it's pretty indisputable. Now, I don't want to do all that legwork. I don't want to do all that legwork myself, which is to say, I'm not going to go through and actually catalog all the data and all the responses and create a huge database of it. But if one were to do so, the patterns would be obvious. So there are 52 people here. So if you don't mind thumbsing up, I'd appreciate it. This is a very, very big live stream for me. So it's kind of a big accomplishment. I got 50 people. That's pretty good. And having said all that, I'm going to wish you a pleasant good afternoon and wrap it up. Because I'm done saying what I had to say. And I'll be back on another occasion to live stream some more. So thanks for being here, everybody. Rock on.